state of education in Nigeria is worrisome compared to the 1970s and 80s. What advice do you have for those in authority to fix the rot in the education sector?
I would actually ask them to go pick up the file that I left behind in the Ministry of Education, because it was a very incisive work. It was work that looked at the issues in education analytically, the story around the relevance of education and the story around quality of education at all the levels of education, including a level that had not become important in the public school system at that time, which was early child care education. We also had policy work on the matter of gender and girl child to ensure, and vulnerable people education in terms of the people in the riverine areas, or even what you call the headers today, and then the Al-Majiri. It was during our time that the Al-Majiri policy on education started. So everything in terms of the issues that need to be focused on are there. I think that the most important thing usually for every administration is how it defines its priorities. And I do not think that this administration considers education a priority.
And the blueprint you left behind in the Ministry of Education is still relevant to this day?
Extremely relevant, because as I was saying in the speech to the graduates of the Nexford MBA program, the ideas that we already had in 2006, 2007 is what is being caught on to now. You can imagine, I left almost 14 years ago, and here we are doing the things that we already started thinking of. Imagine if we steadily carried on with the implementation of those ideas. Also, we need to recognize that education is one of the sectors and systems in the world that our era of 21st century disruptive technology would fundamentally change.
And talking about disruptive technology, it's been said that e-learning adoption could be a panacea for improving the quality of education in Nigeria. But knowing the infrastructure deficit and problems we have with internet connectivity, electricity, and all of that, how do we get around that?
Well, so one of the things we know is that despite all of these bottlenecks that we see, we actually manage to have links with the rest of the world. So the capacity of the human mind to overcome bottlenecks is incredible. And that's the power of technology also. So there are multiple levels of solutions that are now becoming very important in overcoming some of the infrastructural hurdles and bottlenecks. And so I think that it is for us to not box ourselves and say that infrastructure is standing in the way. We need to keep nibbling at some of those problems that alternative solutions have been found for through technology. And I think that what should worry us is the poor governance that makes it almost impossible for some of the basic fundamentals. For example, we need to wire up the entire country. We need that the entire country should be connected to the backbone, right? So that the rural people would not be outside of the global change. So it's an inclusive, process of growth and development, and that will not achieve it because the face of poverty on our continent, and especially in Nigeria, remains the 18-year-old girl in the rural community without any education and not at all connected to what's going on with the rest of the world. That's the face of poverty, as when expressed in humankind.
Now, you sit on the Board of Advisory for Nexford University and the School of Policy and Governance, and you're very much involved in the education sector. We cannot have a conversation about improving quality education in Nigeria without talking about the standards of teachers and the quality. So what would you prescribe as a template that Nigeria could adopt in getting teachers training right?
So that's part of why I told you in your first question to ask them to go to the files I left in education. We already were solving this. We did a diagnostic of the quality of teachers as well as the number of teachers in our country. And we found that in terms of number of teachers, we were not doing well. We had a deficit of almost 200,000 teachers that needed to be in the classroom. We also looked at assessed the quality, and we found that as much as 55% of teachers in the classroom were still holders of TC2 certificate, that is Teacher Grade 2 certificate, which had been outlawed as no longer acceptable minimum. So we decided that we were going to do a major teacher upgrade program, and we did design a teacher upgrade program. Together with the Nigerian Union of Teachers and the Teachers Registration Council,
So
and
the stakeholders
colleges of
were
education
involved.
across the country. But the principal vehicle through which we started the upgrade program so that we could take all the TC2 certificate holders to a minimum of NCE was Nigeria Teachers Institute in Kaduna. And the program was designed in the kind of way that it was going to immerse teachers in new ways, new methods of teaching, and upgrade them to the standard of teachers at the same level in a country like Finland, which we were using as our benchmark country. It was unbelievable.
Did it ever start?
We did start. It started. The first set of them started, following the design of that program while I was still minister. Subsequently, I cannot account for what's going on.
And finally, Dr. Oby Ezekwesili, bandits have been targeting educational institutions and schools recently. You were a big part of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. Abduction of students seems to be what is in trend now because of the shock value and the headlines it brings. How much effect do you think these abductions have on educational development in Nigeria?
Oh, huge effect, huge effect. I do know that amongst the families of our Chibok girls, there are some of the parents that up until today blame themselves for the abduction of their children. And you know why? Because they said, if I did not send her to school, she would not have been abducted. The government told us it was a good thing for our children to go to school. We believed them, released our children to go to school, and what we get in return is the loss of our children without anyone caring. That's a terrible thing, especially in northern Nigeria, where girls in school is way below the ratio of girls in school in the southern part of the country. As a matter of fact, the reason that Chibok girls meant a lot to me was that as Minister of Education, girls' education was a critical pillar of my reforms. And the three states that were pilot states, Borno State, Yobe State, and Kebbi State, because they had the lowest ratio of girls in school. And so to see that many years after I left, some of these girls were in school, were graduating secondary school, and then some are abducted from school like that, massively, and then I wouldn't care. No, that's not humanity. And so for me, it was important that I should be a voice together with other people for their rescue. Now look at it. The fact that our government over and over failed Chibok girls was a signal of a weak country. And every time you send a wrong signal, people pick it, interpret it, and use it in the way they like. So what happened is that our country failed Chibok girls, sent a signal to hoodlums, to savages, that it's entirely okay to do anything you like with our children, and see where we are today. I really worry about the future of education. Because in the northern part of the country, it's going to be harder to have, children allowed to go to school. But the truth is, we've seen that even in post-conflict, territories around the world, there is a way that the nation state can be serious and preserve education.
On that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Ezekwesili. Thank you for taking time out to talk to us on
Thank
News
you.
Central.
Always my pleasure.